Why do they call the place Splatter Farm?
The Death Farm.
The Death Farm.
There's some people murdered there 30 years ago.
We are talking Return to Splatter Farm. This one is directed and written by Jeff Kirkendall and co-directed by Mark Polonia. And this one stars Danielle, Donahue and Mel Heffin. The Polonia stable of films seem to be very prolific, and I have reviewed a few of them here. This one is actually a sequel to, I think it's a 1987 movie called Splatter Farm, although this one really is a completely separate story, so you can watch this one without having seen the original. And it's essentially a low-budget take on a kind of Texas Chainsaw Massacre-ish style slasher film. So we have a group of people, one of which has bought this old farmhouse, and, you know, there's been murders there 30 years ago. And, you know, we have a group of, I think, 5 or so people going into this kind of farmhouse, although seemingly not having really seen much of it. And inevitably, there is a killer still at large there, lurking in the bushes. What will happen? You'll have to watch the movie to find out. So let's talk about Return to Splatter Farm. So, obviously a extremely low budget movie, probably quite a quick turnaround I would imagine in regards to production time here. The movie does follow the kind of the standard sort of slasher genre rules in this kind of thing. We have a mysterious stranger wandering around dispatching victims one by one. We've got plenty of booby shots here. For those of you, who are booby watchers, there are, it tries to do its best, I think, in regards to some of the gorier kills, but the budget does kind of let it down on there. But there is a couple of effects here I think look reasonable, and there are a couple of different kind of ways that this killer dispatches his victims as well. I've got to say, despite some of the kind of limitations in their acting ability, some of the cast here do quite a good job in making some at least likeable characters, if not particularly believable ones. But to be honest with you, this film is pretty much a nondescript, extremely low budget slasher movie with no real kind of standout moment that kind of sets it above even this lower budget brethren. But let's talk about the things maybe that I think really let the film down. I think probably the biggest one is the very disappointing killer. Let me tell you, this particular killer isn't the most exciting or visually interesting. It's just a kind of like a skinny old dude, to be honest. That's it. Not particularly threatening. Certainly doesn't kind of send shivers up your spine. It's, relatively over-explained in regards to his origin, with some kind of very cheesy flashbacks, I have to say. By design, one thinks, but nonetheless. But yeah, the killer is just, like I say, nothing. He's just this old guy. So it's kind of like, I suppose you want to say more of a serial killer than a slasher in a way, because there's no real fantastical elements to this. It's just a guy in a boiler suit with kind of scraggly long hair, but it doesn't look like he can take on at least some of these guys in a fight, to be quite honest with you. The gore here is of the I've bought some rubber bones from eBay kind of variety in some of the prosthetics here. So that there are a couple of sequences where I do think look okay. There's a girl that gets kind of burnt in the face, and at least that I think prosthetics looks quite good. But there are instances here where it looks like rubber stuff, There's an over-reliance on royalty-free music. We have one guy seemingly listening to the whole song over and over again. There's one particular kind of very mundane rock song over and over, seemingly forever, and thinking, Jesus, listen to it, at least get a different kind of royalty-free song. Things like this. The acting, as I've kind of alluded to, isn't the best, and some of the kind of the awkward, even physical acting from the cast here makes it a little bit cringy sometimes, I'm not going to lie. I mean, like I said, some of the characters are kind of fun still, I'll give them that. And I have seen some of these cast in other Polina productions, and, you know, sometimes they fare better, so, you know, it's a little bit of a mixed bag. I mean, there are some better, you know, there's some better performances here, but no one's fabulous, let me just say. They're just kind of like, at the very best, you kind of get some average performances, and the worst, you can kind of get some quite cringeworthy ones. Now, unfortunately, I think, obviously, with a name like Splatter Farm, I think the gore fans among you are probably going to be expecting somewhat of a, you know, gory movie, and it really isn't. I mean, like I said, there's a couple of some cheap prosthetic kind of gore shots and stuff, but it never really feels like violent in any way or kind of particularly kind of gruesome or horrific, because it just looks too cheap. That the movie, you know, we're meant to believe this has been an abandoned farmhouse for 30 years, but it looks in perfect condition outside of some clearly fake spider webs and things like this. So realistically, this is not a film, I don't even think, for slasher fans. I think we'll kind of want to kick this can down the road a little bit, and I always think some of that with these lower budget productions, I just think there's been a little bit more time on things rather than kind of banging them out to kind of like in quick succession, and maybe make less films but high quality ones. Clearly that isn't the business model, because these things keep happening, but there you go. Really, I can't recommend this film. There's just not enough. There's just not enough there. Even if you're a big slasher fan, there's just not enough to kind of like really recommend it, unless you are just wanting every single slasher film that there is. There was an opportunity here, I think, to make it a particularly gory and hardcore movie, which is where I would have